All right. I know there's a lot of questions out there about the big, beautiful bill, but I'm not going to do like the politicians out there that start talking about it even if even before they've actually read it. So a lot of politicians, as we saw this last time around, they actually signed off on it, voted yes for it, and then they realized, oh, wait a second, I didn't know that was in there. I didn't know that was in there. It seems like the president doesn't know there's a lot of Medicaid cuts in there, but I'm putting all that together right now. But today I want to talk about spouse benefits. So we're talking about current spouse benefits, divorce spouse benefits, independently entitled divorce spouse benefits. A lot of people don't know what that is. Surviving spouse benefits, surviving divorce spouse benefits, child and care benefits, and all the rest of it. So we're going to go through that. Should take about 10 or 15 minutes to do kind of an overview. This is also a live Q&A, so I'm going to answer a bunch of your questions. Looks like we already got a bunch of questions there. So if you're watching this live, make sure you type in your question, and I will get to as many as possible. Looks like Joyce is joining us for the first time, and she wants to know if she can ask a question. And yes, Joyce, ask a question. You're the first time in a live chat, so ask a question, and hopefully I'll be able to see it. I get tons of questions that pop up there. Bella and the rest of the team, if you happen to see her question pop up, let's make sure she answers. Make sure I answer hers. And remember, I also do those. I answer the people's questions they submit in a recording. I've got about 4 of those today. And one last thing before we get started here. As I mentioned yesterday, there's going to be millions of people that are kicked off of Medicaid. And one of the reasons is it's going to just be kind of a bureaucratic disenrollment because people didn't put in the right forms at the right time. They didn't know they had to do it. They missed this little block. They forgot to date that. They forgot to check this, or whatever the case may be. I'm coming up with an addition to my website. I'm working on that now. So this is not only for Medicaid. There's so many people out there struggling in our community. That's the number one thing we do in our community is we help people around us. No one's left behind. So I'm coming up with an addition to my website that you will be able to find local resources. So I'm kind of coming up with kind of the designs for it. So I'm going to start with Medicaid because that's the one that most people are going to have issues with going forward is Medicaid, getting Medicaid, keeping their Medicaid. Even if they're eligible, they might lose it because they're not doing everything 100% perfectly. And states are going to be cutting back. They're going to try everything they possibly do to kick you off of Medicaid, and we're going to make sure that happens. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe and like and share and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, now let's get into what we're going to be talking about today, and that is family benefits. But in terms of, there's different types of family benefits. There's spouse benefits, divorce spouse benefits, everything I talked about. There's also child benefits. Looks like I've got a question. One of my recorded questions that a viewer submitted was about child benefits, and there's also child and care. But let's talk about actual spouse benefits. So as the thumbnail of today's video says, you can actually get $1,500 or more, and you never worked. A lot of people, there are still people out there that they never worked themselves. They were married, they're currently married, divorced, whatever the case may be, and they think that they had to be insured on their own record to get benefits. Not necessarily so. If you never worked for whatever reason, you stayed home to raise the kids or disabled or whatever the case may be, and you were married to someone, you can collect benefits on their record. What happens is you do have to file for your benefits on your record. If that person is still out there alive and kicking, you still have to file for benefits on your record. But if you never paid into it, it'll just be a denial. I've done this hundreds of thousands of times. The Social Security employee just has to go through the process to see if you are insured. So they go ahead and file an application on your record, and it's denied. And then they go ahead and file an application on your spouse record, a divorce spouse record. And you can get up to half. Well, you can get 50% of them, well, up to half, depends on when you start your benefits. If you start your benefits at full retirement age, then you get 50% of their benefit amount. If you start earlier, it's reduced. Everything with Social Security, if you started early, it is reduced. You also have to meet the eligibility requirements in terms of how long you were married. You had to be married to the person for 10 years. Had a question yesterday about common law. So yes, there are common law situations out there in particular states. And I've got a bunch of frequently asked questions on my website, but you had to be, if it's a living type situation, you had to be married to the person for 10 years. Your benefit on your own record has to be less than half of the benefit on that person's record. So it's a lot of people make the mistake and they look at the wrong numbers. You're not going to, don't look at your check. Don't look at your check or your spouse's check. Those are, it's called the MBA, the monthly benefit amount. You need to look at what's called the PIA, the primary insurance amount, the amount you would have received at your full retirement age and the amount they would have received at their full retirement age. That's the number you have to look at. Too many people are looking at the wrong numbers and they think they're not eligible because they're looking at the wrong numbers. If you don't know what the numbers are, easy. Go on to SSA.gov, set up a My Social Security account. You can see it there. If you can't get in, then just call the 800 number, 800-772-1213. Call Social Security and say, hey, can I get any money off of this guy or whatever? And they can check to see if your benefit amount that calculates. And then, so you have to be 62 years old and the person has to be receiving benefits to get those spouse benefits. There is an exception. Everything with Social Security, there's an exception. This is called the independently entitled divorced spouse benefits. Yes, that's a mouthful, but it is what it is. And this is the one that just so many people don't know about. And unfortunately, a lot of Social Security employees, particularly the ones at the front windows, don't know about, and they're sending people away. I've been talking about independently entitled divorce spouse benefits for a year or so, and so many people they come into live Q&A and they ask that question. I said, okay, here, okay, go down to the local office, and then they go down to the local office and they ask about that, the front windows, and they come back in the live Q&A the next day and they said, Ed, you're an idiot. Well, usually it's my wife that says that, but anyway, I went down there and they said I'm dumb because they looked at me like I was, I had antlers or something. And they said, no, my previous spouse has to be receiving benefits. And I said, no. So that's why I had to put the Social Security reference up there. As long as your previous spouse, we're not talking about your current spouse, this is for a divorce spouse situation. As long as your previous spouse is at least 62 years old, that person doesn't have to be filing, doesn't have to be receiving benefits. You just had to be married to the person for 10 years. And one last thing is on this thing only this particular benefit, the independently entitled divorce spouse benefit, only on this one, you have to be divorced for 2 years, 2 continuous years. That's only on this particular one, not on anything else, just on independently entitled divorce spouse. And because I was tired of being called an idiot, other than by my wife, which I tolerate, but anyway, I actually put the Social Security reference down there. So you can click on that little button there and the actual reference, the policy reference, the POMS, the 2,000 pages of policy. This is the particular page of the policy that talks about that. So when you go down there, just before they start calling me an idiot, or think you're crazy, pull out that little policy that you've got printed out and hand it over to that person, and they will, sheepishly look at you, and then they'll disappear in the back for a few minutes, and they'll come back and hopefully they apologize. But anyway, so that's the spouse benefits and divorce spouse benefits, independently entitled divorce spouse benefits. There's also another one's called the child in care. So if you're married to someone and they are currently receiving benefits, and that person has a child that's receiving benefits, you can get benefits as well. It doesn't matter your age. You can be 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. If you are essentially not working or working a reduced amount in order to stay home and take care of that child, the child has to be under the age of 16 or became disabled before the age of 22. So that's called child in care benefits. Okay, so that's for living spouses. So what about surviving spouses? So surviving spouses, again, on my website, mygovexpert.com, you can go in there and check it all out. So you've got surviving spouses and surviving divorced spouses. This too many people make this mistake, is the 10-year rule. It does apply if it's a divorce type situation. If you were married to someone and it was your first ex and then you got remarried, but now you're divorced, you can jump over to your first ex, whatever one is the higher amount. So you jump over to your first ex there. And if it's a divorce type situation, yes, you had to be married 10 years. There's an exception there. What I say about exceptions? If you marry someone and you're only married to that person for 5 years, but then by the end of the next calendar year, you remarry that same person and are married for at least another 5 years, Social Security can actually add those 2 years, those two times together. That's one that most Social Security employees don't know, so you have to fight about that one a little bit. But all right, so you had to be married to the person for 10 years, unless you were married to that person when they passed away. So if you were married to someone when you're in your 20s and you were married to them for 9 months and they passed away, you're entitled to benefits on that person's record. Doesn't matter whether it's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later. Doesn't matter. If it was a divorced spouse, had to be 10 years, if not 9 months. And there's a couple exceptions there. If that person passed away before the 9-month time frame, if it was an accident, Social Security can make an exception. Or if the person was active duty and they died in the line of duty, then Social Security has an exception for that. So those are surviving spouses. Okay? So that's surviving spouse, your current spouse, and surviving divorced spouse. So again, you know, your surviving spouse, you're still living with that person. And here's what a lot of people make mistakes on the calculation. They think when their spouse passes, they will get that person's check. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of you will get the higher amount, but you won't get both checks, both full checks. If you're currently receiving $1,000 a month and your deceased spouse was receiving $2,000 a month and you're your full retirement age when this happens, you'll continue to receive your $1,000 plus the difference. So another $1,000. So one day you have $3,000 coming into the household. Someone passes away, and the next month you only got $2,000. I can't tell you how many terrible conversations I had when I worked at Social Security. People came in and they just lost a loved one, and now they're financially strapped. And I tell them, yeah, sorry, you are going to get, you know, that person's check, but yours is going to offset that. They think they're just going to continue to get their own check and that check. That is a terrible kind of realization when that happens. It's, yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. And then doesn't help that, you know, then we also, the Social Security gives them that lump sum death payment, the $255. It's been $255 for decades and decades and decades. It's the craziest thing. Nobody's ever been happy to receive $255. So, but it is your money, so make sure you get it. All right, so those, I just wanted to go through kind of an outline of spouse benefits. Remember, you can go onto my website, mygovexpert.com, and see all kinds of things about retirement. I've got some cool little calculators as well, when to start benefits, working in benefits, taxation, all the rest of it. Disability information in there, survivor benefits, family benefits, SSI, which is the welfare-based benefit the Social Security Administration administers, Medicare. I've got new living overseas, veterans, Medicaid, and this is going to be the big one, the community resources. That's the one I'm working on now. So if you're watching this on a recording a week or a month later, check out on my website, and hopefully I've added that in there, and let's help those people in your community get everything they need. Too many people out there are going to be struggling, and even more so now, because, hey, we've got to give the billionaires a whole bunch more money. So there's that. All right, let's get into some actual questions, some live questions. And as usual, the questions are sponsored by Chapter Medicare. So thank you for them for helping us do this. All right, let's see. Had my appointment May 16th. I received my 2 letters finalizing my SSA agreement. However, wanted to know about my birthday being on the 1st. When should my payment start? So if Social Security considers you obtain your birthday the day before. So if your birthday is on the 1st, you reached your age the day before on the 31st or the 30th of the previous month. So in order to start benefits at 62, you have to be 62 the entire month. So if you were born on the 3rd, then you weren't 62 the entire month. But if you were born essentially on the 1st or 2nd, then you should be good. And remember, Social Security always pays a month in arrears. So if you're entitled for benefits in January, your January check comes in February. And for February, it comes in March and all the rest of it. So that bill as being correct. What does the bill really say for everyone? Because 900 pages is not a 1-minute thing. No, that is a fact. It is. But everything I've seen about it is, yeah, it's not good. Medicaid, Medicare, and people are saying, no, it doesn't say anything about Medicare. Yeah. It's, yeah, it's up. I'm putting together my video. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. But yeah, it doesn't look good for a lot of struggling people out there. And they, yes, as usual, politicians, they throw a couple of pennies at you to shut you up. And the pennies they threw were that $6,000, tax deduction, which 60% of people out there, if you're just surviving essentially just on Social Security, doesn't help you at all. Doesn't help you at all, because 60% of people don't even pay taxes on their Social Security benefits, because essentially that's all they receive. Or just work a little bit on the side as well. But if you're in the low income, which 60% are, you don't even pay taxes on Social Security. So this doesn't help you at all. You're thinking it's a $6,000 stimulus or something that you're going to get a $6,000 check. No, that's unfortunately. And it's even worse because this is going to cut into the trust fund more. So the trust fund is going to be cut deeper and quicker. So it's probably going to reduce about a year from the trust fund. So everybody's going to get cuts so much sooner because of this. Because when you pay taxes on Social Security, it doesn't go to the IRS general tax fund. When you pay taxes on your Social Security, the IRS takes it and they give it over to Social Security to put in the trust fund. And so the trust fund is being replenished by people who pay taxes on Social Security, the top 40%. So the lower 60%, no benefit. It's actually going to hurt them more because they're going to get bigger cuts on their Social Security check going soon, relatively soon, probably about 2032 now, about a year earlier, and it's going to be deeper. So we're talking about 19%, 23%, so it's probably going to be close to 25%, but everything is still being worked out. It's not good. It is not good. Have him collect now, do not wait, or it won't be here when he is 65. Okay, so someone's giving advice on, when to collect. It really depends on a particular person's situation. If you need the money and you're early, 62, 63, 64, then take the money. Yeah. If you're working, then you might not want to go ahead and take the money because, they might have to offset it $1 for every $2 you make over that. I did a video probably about a week or two ago that I went through this entire list and talked about, when you should retire, when you should consider thinking about retiring, because nobody can tell you when for certainty until, they talk to you and ask you a bunch of questions. But I also have on my website, on the retirement section, a little button there, when to start, and it has a little when to start benefits calculator. So it might be able to give you has a nice little chart there and everything. And my calculators and everything are 100% free. But if you want to throw a couple of bucks and subscribe to the newsletter and give us some feedback, you are too awesome. We appreciate it. So my son and I, this is a two-man operation, so we appreciate all the support. Nancy, me too, and I just can't understand how people are so happy the bill passed. Yeah, they just don't understand it. The people that, there's a lot of people out there that are going to get their Medicaid cuts, but they don't think they're going to get their Medicaid cuts because they're saying, well, I don't receive Medicaid. I receive Denali Care. I receive Apple Care. I receive Medi-Cal. That's Medicaid. It's just different states call it different things. So, and then they say, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get my Medicaid cut because I am an American citizen and I am retired or I am disabled. It doesn't matter. You can still get your benefits cut might just be temporarily for a few months, but yeah, that's going to be a nightmare for those few months, getting your prescriptions and going to your doctors. And because Medicaid supports a lot of the hospitals out there, it's really going to affect hospitals, particularly rural areas. It's going to drive up the cost for everybody. So even if you don't have Medicaid, if you're paying for your own health insurance, expect higher prices. I mean, the entire American healthcare system is already teetering on the brink of, destruction. And this just pushes it over the edge just a little, well, a lot more. So. I'm 59. I collect my late husband's pension through FERS. Will it be discontinued when I reach age 62? Through FERS, yeah, no, FERS, that's separate, completely separate from Social Security. So if you collect a pension from FERS, that's between you and FERS. Yeah, so you'd have to reach out to them. But in terms of Social Security now doesn't care anymore. They passed the Social Security Fairness Act. So. Joseph, I'm on SSI disability, and I am on Medicaid and Medicare and SSDI. Will anything change for me? Yeah. We're not exactly sure when this stuff is going to hit, but yeah, if you're on Medicaid, because there's going to be $1 trillion less going to the states for Medicaid. So that's where I've seen estimates that's probably about 17% cut. So you might still keep Medicaid. But if you have you're a dual eligible because you have Medicaid and Medicare, they might downgrade that, and because a lot of people are going to lose that Medicare savings program. And what's the Medicare savings program? That is the program. If you're on Medicaid, the higher levels of Medicaid, they will pay for your Part B premium, that $185. And if you're just receiving $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month, to get a $185 cut, that's going to hurt. So a lot of people are going to lose that Medicare savings program, that $185. And if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, one of those dual eligible plans, and you also have a grocery card, one of those $100, $200, or $300 grocery cards, you're going to lose that one too if you lose the higher levels of Medicaid. So there are going to be a lot of states that, because less money is coming in for the federal government, they're going to have to start cutting back. And they're going to have to cut back on the staffing in those Medicaid offices that are supposed to be helping you do all that stuff. And that's why I'm doing my new website there, which I'm really going to need y'all's help. We're going to have people like Bella and Pink Owl and Take and Took and all the regular, hopefully y'all jump up and join us. And in your particular state, you help people, make sure they navigate the bureaucracy and get what they need out there. So this is going to be a community effort. Donna, help. Okay. I was married for 31 years. My husband passed away. I remarried before 60, but that marriage ended in divorce. I called Social Security and they said I'm not eligible for survivor benefits from the first. No, that's incorrect. You remarried, that's fine, but you're now single. So you just talked to the wrong person. When you called, you talked to a customer service representative. They are not a specialist. They're what's called a Title II CS, Title II of the Social Security Act, a claim specialist, which I was for a decade or so before I became a manager. So you just have to call them up and schedule and say, I want to file for surviving benefits from my first spouse, and you're not currently married. And this is called protective filing. So basically, you call up, you schedule an appointment, you say, I want to talk to a Title II CS. They'll schedule an appointment, and you talk to them, and they'll, say, yes, you are entitled to benefits if, you were married 10 years, which you were, and all that stuff. And if they go ahead and approve it, and they say, okay, all right, we're going to start your benefits this month. And you say, wait a second. No. I called a month ago, 6 months ago, last year, and I asked about that. I wanted to file at that time, but I was given incorrect information. And they should have that as a record. They should have that as a record in the system, particularly if you set up an appointment. They have a system, it's called VIPR, Visitor Intake Process. So you should be in the system there. But you tell them, hey, I called 6 months ago and they said I couldn't, so I didn't. but I heard now that I can, so I want my 6 months back pay. Make sure you get that. Susan, Dr. Ed, one of the things I appreciate the most about you is that you are so proactive. Case in point, you're adding completion requirements on filling out forms on Medicaid in your website. Yes. Yeah, before I worked for Social Security, I worked for Department of Social Services doing Medicaid and food stamps and all that kind of stuff. And then before that, Sergeant in the Marine Corps. So yes, improvise, adapt, overcome. So they're trying to kick so many people off of Medicaid and, essentially reduce their Social Security check because they have to pay for the $185. And they are going to reduce our Social Security checks because the trust fund is going to run out sooner. So does this affect, yeah. So I heard there was a president that said he's not going to touch Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Guess what? All three. Spouse benefits. Spouse has full Social Security now. PIA is 2 times of mine. My full retirement age, 66, is in 8 months. If I pull the trigger now, I can deal with reduction, but it will affect surviving spouse. Yes, good looking out. So if you file for benefits early, so you start, because the other person's PIA is, wait a second, okay, the other person's, your spouse's PIA is 2 times yours. So if something happens to you, the other person's benefit amount is higher anyway. So if I'm getting the connection correctly here. So if you're delaying filing for your benefits because it's going to affect survivor benefits, but your benefits are lower, then it doesn't really matter. Unless that person is young and that person wants to go ahead and file, even though their benefit on their own record is higher, they want to file for survivor benefits for a while until they switch over to yours. So, I just want to make sure, make a video on that one. And that way I'm answering it correctly, depending on the connection, exactly what you're talking about. So go on to my website there. Unfortunately, you can't see it here. But you go onto my website, mygovexpert.com, and then the bottom left, you'll see a little icon with a little camera, and click on that, and you can record a 2-minute video, and ask me that question. All right. Ed has a really good sense of humor. Sometimes it doesn't come across. Yeah, it's got that dry sense of humor. Yeah. Nancy, I was wondering how it's going to affect our Social Security benefits. Yeah, it's technically not a direct effect on Social Security, but it is an indirect. Again, if you're receiving Medicaid, Medicare Savings Program, it's going to affect your Social Security check because your Social Security check is going to be reduced by $185. And because less money is coming into the trust fund for those upper 40% that have to pay taxes on their Social Security, that's going to hurt the rest of us. And it always hurts the people that can't afford it. So, unfortunately. Where is Joyce? I don't see her question, so I want to make sure we catch her since she's new here. I collect Social Security disability insurance. My late husband's Social Security and his pension through First. Okay, already answered that one. How many times are we going to have to tell MAGA people, I told you so, or you voted for that guy? Yeah. And one of the issues is this is the mantra going to be for the next 12, 24 months is, wait, I didn't think that had anything to do with me. I didn't think this would hurt my family. Why didn't anybody warn us? Hello? I thought Medicare was safe. I just assumed it wouldn't touch us. This is what we're going to hear. For the next year or so. Do you mean I can get my ex-husband's as well as my current husband's money? No, you have to pick one. You can't get both. You'll always pick the higher one. So here's another thing a lot of people miss is, let's say they were married 3 times, 2 times, 3 times, whatever. And you're married to one person, and that person's PIA, their benefit amount is higher, and you were married to that person for 10 years, so you go ahead and file for benefits on that record because it's a higher benefit amount. And then you're chugging along there, But then let's say your first spouse, whose benefit amount was lower, because remember, lower, and it, technically not lower, but in terms of a living spouse, you only get up to 50%. But let's say your first spouse passes away, and now you don't get up to 50%, you get up to 100%. So you can actually go back and get the higher benefits if you were married to that first person, if it was divorced for 10 years, or if you were married to them when they passed at least 9 months. A lot of people miss that. So many people are walking around out there and that have $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 available to them, but they're not going to get it. So sounds like your wife doesn't like it. Nah, she's awesome. She's awesome. We just like harassing each other because it's fun. Because humility, yeah. And she's smoking hot, so I deal with it. So there's that. I'm receiving SSI. Can I wait till I'm 70 to switch to Social Security? If you're receiving SSI, no. SSI is the welfare-based program. If you're receiving Social Security, essentially welfare needs-based program, then you have to file for any benefits you're eligible for. But Lynn, I know you're talking about, you don't mean SSI, you just mean regular, you're receiving regular Social Security benefits. So, well, to switch to Social Security, if you mean surviving spouse benefits, yeah. If you're receiving SSI, no, you cannot wait. Okay, I'm just going to answer it like you asked it. If you're receiving SSI and you turn 62 and you're eligible for benefits on your own record, you have to take it. If you turn 60 and you're eligible for spouse benefits, surviving spouse benefits, you have to take it. You have to take it. So, let's see. Bella, hey, what's up, Bella? They're going through and checking who is able to work or not according to what was told today. Yeah, the work requirements are a nightmare, keeping track of that. So if you work 79 hours or so, then you're going to get kicked off, and then it's going to take you a month or 2 months or 3 months to get back in again. And because part of it is that bureaucratic disenrollment, so these are the hurdles they're putting up. So even if you work but you take a vacation or something, or, you get laid off for a little bit and you're looking for another job, then you're going to lose your health care. If the local Medicaid office loses the forms, or you forget to check out, if you forget to do everything 100% perfectly, you're going to lose your health care. And it's, yeah, so. Thank you. I couldn't print the SSA 44 for some reason and only got first page to your website and went to your website and was able to print all pages. Oh, okay, thank you. So you went to SSA.gov to print off the IRMA, the life-changing event form. So it's basically IRMA that you're paying a higher premium for your Part B, but you have a life-changing event and you want to appeal that. So you fill out the SSA 44. And you went into SSA.gov and you couldn't print anything off. And you go to my website and you can print it off. So I told you our website is better than SSA.gov. And it's going to be even 100 times better once we all get together and start helping people out in our community. So you guys are awesome. I collect SSDI, my late husband's Social Security, and his pension through FERS. Will the pension be just, okay, same question. Dr. Ed, your thoughts on ACA changes from the Big BB. Should I go ahead and apply or wait until they figure out what they're going to do? I don't want them to raise the cost on me after acceptance. No, I would go ahead and get it. I would go ahead and get it. If you need health insurance, I would go ahead and get it right now, because you need health insurance, because you know what happens when you don't, then that's when you get sick or fall or whatever the case may be. So I would go ahead and get it. And then if the chips start falling, and what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of people that, because they're going to lose those premium subsidies, the advanced tax premium subsidies, then yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that just drop the Affordable Care Act, Marketplace Insurance, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it. They're just going to drop it. So prices are going to go up for everybody. There's estimate in some places the prices are going to go up by about 75%. So it's going to be a snowball effect. I mean, this is what they have been trying to do since day one, is get rid of health, the Affordable Care Act. So this is another attempt. So it's going to be a snowball effect. And again, same type of situation. They're not going to be there to help you out, to navigate through the process. And even when you do get everything done, the prices just might be too prohibitive and you just don't do anything. And so if you don't have health insurance, that means you won't get sick and you're not going to fall and get an accident, right? No, you're still going to do it. But then when you go to the emergency room, it's going to cost everybody so much more, and the hospitals are going to take the hit. And sure, they put a $50 billion slush fund in there for hospitals, but you know which parts of the country that money is going to go to. Yeah, it's going to be a private slush fund for, political contributors, the people that own those particular hospitals. So, Ed, when others are entitled to your Social Security, like divorce, mate, or children, do they split your benefits or do they get equal benefits? So if it's other people, so let's say you have a divorced spouse, they can get benefits on your record. Let's say you got remarried again. It doesn't affect your benefit amount. It doesn't affect your new spouse's benefit amount. Could you imagine if that happened, if Social Security did that? Like if someone was married 2 or 3 times and then the third spouse comes on and the first 2 get reduced? Could you imagine wow. I mean, yeah, that would be terrible. There would be, I think, let's say the murder rate would go up a little bit. Yeah, that would. Why is that person? I put up with this person for 30 years and you only put up with this person for 10 years. And why do you get the same amount? It would be a nightmare. So Social Security says, yeah, if you've got 3 spouses and, half of yours is $1,500, they each get $1,500. I do not appreciate a comment. Okay. Yeah. Let's try to be nice. We're all dumb and we're all idiots. That's the human condition. So I think we just, we deal with that, but you don't throw out that anyway. Sometimes I do because some people are just, but anyway, I do in good humor. Nancy, don't pay attention to the rude comments. They're just being ugly. Yes. Even for me. Let's see here. Zeline, my husband died when he was 52 years old. And that time my youngest daughter was on SSI and they switched her over to the higher benefit, child and care benefits. And can she get benefits after 18? Okay, so good. So sounds like you did everything right in terms of the bureaucracy there. She was on SSI and they switched over to surviving child benefits, and those benefits will continue until 18. They will stop automatically, but if she's still in high school, then you just have to fill out some forms and prove that she's still in high school, and she'll receive benefits until she graduates high school or 19 and 2 months. If she is, because she was on SSI, so maybe disability. So if she became disabled before the age of 22, then if she's approaching 18, you really need to reach out to Social Security and be proactive and say, hey, she's going to be 18 here soon. But remember, she was on SSI based on a disability. So her disability did begin before she turned the age of 22. So you need to start the paperwork to get her switched. And because what happens is the disability process, the criteria for getting disability as a child is different than an adult. So they need to do kind of an adult type of disability evaluation because she's now an adult, 18 years old. But get that process done sooner rather than later because it takes months and months and months to do. So you want to make sure her checks don't get cut off. So if she is approved, it's called a DAC claim, Disabled Adult Child Benefits. If she's approved, then she will get those benefits. It'll be 75% of her deceased father's record for the rest of her life, as long as she's disabled, unless she remarries. But there's an exception to that. If you get married to another DAC, a disabled adult child, you can actually continue those benefits. So exception to the exceptions, the exceptions. Sonia, I just jumped in. My husband passed at 60 last December. I'm 58. We were married 26 years. When can I file? I'm 58. You can file when you're 60. The only time you can file earlier is if you are disabled. It's called a disabled widow's benefit. So between the age of 50 and 59, yes, you can file for disabled widow benefits. But if you're not disabled, 60 is the time. So, but it'll all be all right. Murkowski got hers. Yeah, they definitely bought off the politicians to get the votes. Yeah, it's sad. After the speaker called Trump, the 5 Republicans who voted against the bill suddenly changed their minds. Yeah, it's not as though the policy was changed. Yeah, the policy wasn't changed, so they were saying, "Oh, this is a terrible policy. I'm not gonna vote for it," and didn't change the policy, but they decided to vote for it. That's pretty crazy. Sometimes, Dr. Ed, you give Doge a hard time for mass cuts, but like the employees at the window at Social Security a lot, or all like to tell everyone, no, this includes SNAP and HUD, a lot of rude people. Yes, and I agree. And you know how you get rid of rude people? You give those offices, because I ran third business Social Security, and I'm tired. I know some people are tired, but you get a lot of new people here, so I have to tell people my background. Is you let people hire new people. So here's the deal. If you got someone in your office, everybody knows who the nasty people, sometimes there's people that are nasty. They just don't have a good bedside manner, like, doctors, like it's the best heart surgeon in the country, but that person is just, is just terrible. So you're like, okay. So sometimes you have people that are, not the nicest, but they really are really good at getting their work done. They produce a lot. They're super accurate in everything they do. They're just awesome employees, but they are not good with people. Okay, you tolerate those. But if you got someone that's nasty and doesn't do their work, every office in the country, the people in that office want to fire that person, but they don't, because they can't hire another person. So because Doge and Congress, even before Doge came in, they didn't allow you to hire people. So I've had people, yes, I fired a lot of Social Security employees in my office, but every now and then I had ones that were just kind of borderline. And then I'm like, well, if I could fire that person and get a replacement, that person would be gone. But sure, that person is not the nicest, and they're okay, they produce probably 80% of the work, and the other people in the office have to cover the other 20%. But if I fire that person, then they're not even gonna do the 80%. So everybody else is, your claim is going to be denied or delayed. And so I really like to fire that person, but if I don't, if I do, then who's gonna do that workload? So if you allow offices to, do that, yeah, there's a lot of those people will be fired. But they just keep them because they can't get a replacement. So it's sad. Yvonne, I'm 62 on SSDI. Can I go ahead and go on Medicare, or do I have to wait until I'm 67? If you're on SSDI, you get Medicare after being on SSDI for 2 years. So if you're at your 24-month, mark, if you've been on SSDI for 2 years, then you might even, I've had this happen way too many times. People are on SSDI and they said, Ed, I need health insurance. And I'm like, well, you've been on SSDI for 2, 3, 4 years. You're on Medicare. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. And they just didn't get their Medicare card in the mail, or they threw it away by accident, or they moved, or whatever the case may be. And then I'd say, call up Social Security or call up Chapter, and they can check. They have access to the limited access to the Medicare.gov website, so they can check, and they'll say, oh yeah, you've had Medicare. It's been taken out of your check every month for the last 3 months or 4 months or a year or 2 years. Yeah. All right. Dr. Ed, I'm 70 years old, veteran. Thank you for service. Living on Social Security of $11.97 a month. I also have Medicaid. How much can I earn before my Social Security will be reduced? So you are receiving $11.97 a month. So that means you're not receiving SSI. You're just receiving regular old retirement benefits. So in terms of Social Security, you can make, I always exaggerate, you can make $1 billion a month, and it's not going to affect your Social Security benefits negatively at all. Your Medicaid, that's a whole different ball of wax. So you're past your full retirement age, so you can earn as much as you want. It doesn't affect your Social Security at all. Your Medicaid, however, you'd have to reach out to Medicaid, because each state does a little bit different, and that's going to change. Medicaid is a federal state cooperative. You know, the federal money, the federal government says, okay, here's the deal with giving people Medicaid. They have to be like 100% of the federal poverty level. And you have to give this and you have to cover that and all this kind of stuff. And then the federal government says, okay, here's a whole bunch of money. And then the states put in a whole bunch of money themselves, but they can also mess around with stuff. Well, I mean, good, sometimes bad. They can change a little bit. But let's say they have to be 100% of the federal poverty level. So let's say the federal poverty level is $1,000. So some states say, well, yeah, $1,000 in our state ain't worth, that's nothing. So we're going to make it 138% of the poverty level. So if you're making $1,000, you can make actually up to $1,380. So some states go above and beyond. So the federal government just sets a floor for criteria, and then states can, be a little bit more generous. That was yesterday. So what we're going to see is, because a lot of those states, they can't afford, because they're going to have less money coming in for the federal government. So they are going to start cutting back. And maybe last month, they were saying, okay, if you made 138% of the poverty level, you're good. But now they might say, okay, because we'll run out of money, we're going to make it 120% of the poverty level. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be hurt. So in your particular case, I would reach out to Medicaid and ask them in your particular state and say, hey, I'm making $11.97. I've got someone that's going to give me a little job, doing this, that, or the other. I'm going to make an extra $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 a month. What is the level? And then keep an eye on that level in case it starts changing. So, Larry, a lot of folks are going to be talking to their senators, representatives, or voting them out. Yeah, I think talking didn't work. So I think a lot of people already contacted them, and the train has already left that station. So, hello, sir, and happy 4th of July to you and your family. Thank you. I filed for disability. They claim they overpaid me. They've been taking $40 a month. Okay, yeah, so if you're, they overpaid you somehow, they did the calculation incorrectly, or you're working when you filed and they decided to start your month of entitlement later or earlier, or whatever the case may be. So remember, if you disagree with that, you can file an appeal. On my website, I've got the overpayments. I've got an entire section on my website about overpayments. And then DOJ changed the policy for overpayments a couple of times within a month because they didn't know what they're doing. But this gives you an idea of your appeal rights and everything. So just go onto my website, Understanding Social Security Overpayments there. Let's see. 40 of 44 Trumpy former cabinet members said they would not vote for him. If that doesn't tell you something, nothing will. Yeah. Why doesn't Dr. Ed talk about the benefit of keeping our tax dollars for those that deserve it? Talk about it every day. So not sure what particular thing you're talking about. Yeah, fraud, waste, and abuse. Social Security employees, the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, they look at fraud, waste, and abuse every day. DOJ, Elon Musk, found zero because they were looking at all the wrong places. They were just doing some political theater. They weren't actually looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. They were just trying to attack Social Security so they could privatize it. But yeah, we should all... If you watch my video yesterday, day before yesterday, I talked about that Medicare fraud that they used as political theater, but it does exist. And on my YouTube channel, in the description, it has the phone number for the Office of the Inspector General, Medicare, and all that. Call if you see fraud, waste, and abuse, and anything. Please, please, please call. Absolutely. Are there people who can't talk to about SSI benefits other than people who work for the government? I have many, many questions. Yep, ask them here. And then on my website for SSI, if you're talking about SSI, true SSI, supplemental security income, then I've got on my website, I have got all the things about SSI and the payment amounts, the $967, 2014-50. What is it, and how you all the basics, eligibility, work in SSI. So I've got all of it right there. Mary, I was married for 12 years. I signed up for Social Security April 2024, early retirement. My ex-husband is on SSDI. I don't get anything till he passes. Happy 4th to you. Wow. So that you are entitled to it in terms of, you know, you were married to the person for at least 10 years and all that stuff. But it sounds as like the benefit amount, because he's still out there alive and kicking, your benefit amount is not less than half of his. But if something should happen to him, then the calculations are different. So that's probably what you mean there. So you're entitled, but just to calculate, there's just no more there for you. All right, I've got 4 video questions, so let's go ahead and get into those right now.
Hi, Dr. Ed. I'm Ron from Florida. My question/comment concerns the BBB that got passed today. Didn't Congress bypass PAYGO? They kept talking about the scorecard, and I think they wiped the scorecard clean because they did not include the existing tax bill. Thanks.
Okay, so what he's talking about is the PAYGO, which will affect, this is what is going to affect Medicare. So people say there's not going to be, that doesn't mess with Medicare. Yes, it does. It just doesn't affect it directly. So PAYGO is a law that was passed in 2010, and it just says, hey, if Congress, if y'all do anything and it causes a deficit, you have to find somewhere else to make up that deficit. And that's called the pay-as-you-go. And under a very earlier version of the House bill, it suspended that. The second version of the House bill, it took that out. In the Senate, they took that out. But there was a lot of midnight shenanigans going on, and I don't see that it was taken out. So anyway, what happens? Long story short is, once the president signs this, and it will cause trillions of dollars of deficit. So sorry, kids and grandkids. But, you know, Jeff Bezos was able to do a $50 billion or $50 million wedding and buy another yacht. So we got that. And Medicare is the target of those cuts. Automatic target. They can't touch Social Security. They can't touch Veterans Affairs. The next thing they can do with the largest money that they can attack is Medicare. So we're looking at probably hundreds of billions of dollars of benefits taken out of Medicare. So, but I haven't seen that they exempted that. But again, a lot of last minute things were added on. Okay, let's get to another question here. Calculate your benefits.
Hi, Dr. Ed. I got a question for you. I got 29,000 left over from my union. I'm already retired since 22. How is that 29,000 going to get calculated in under this new bill? Thank you.
All right. So in terms of Social Security, so if you're looking at, your early retirement or something like that, some type of pension, private pension, it does not affect your Social Security benefits in terms of the annual earnings limit. The big, beautiful bill, that's a whole different situation. But you might be talking about the taxes, the $6,000 deduction or $12,000 if you're married. And that is, again, a deduction, if you're one of the 40%, but if you're making $20,000 from a pension, you're probably one of the 40% that do pay taxes on your Social Security. But I'm going to let the tax people figure that out. So once everything is written and your tax people get up to date on exactly, then once you do your taxes, they will be able to figure that out. But if you're making Social Security and that, you'll get the $6,000 deduction. But it just means a $6,000 deduction is if you made $30,000 and you get a $6,000 deduction, it just means that the IRS considers you now make $24,000 instead of $30,000. So that's how that works. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Hi, Dr. Ed. My question is, I just turned 60. I just had my first child, a baby boy, in March, and I believe he is able to get benefits based on my Social Security, which, if I understand correctly, it is 50% or maybe up to 50% of my full retirement benefit. And my question is, when can I start getting that for him? As soon as I turn 62, when I'm eligible to get benefits of my own, do I have to retire in order to get those benefits? And also, how do they figure out, because we're planning on having another child probably in 2027, how do they figure out how much our family maximum will be? Because I'm told that each child will get up to or 50% of my full retirement benefit. And if I decide to retire early at 62, I'll be getting 70% of my benefit. So how do they figure out how much you get? Because they say there's a maximum of between 150 and 180%. So that's my question. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Okay. All right. So, yes, but you have to start receiving benefits. So, a child under the age of 18 or one that became disabled before the age of 22 can receive benefits on a parent's record. So, the child is under the age of 18. So, the child will receive up to 50%. And up to 50% if there's what he's talking about is the family max. So there's a maximum that can be paid out to a particular family. And then I've got that on my website here. You look into the family benefits section and you go to the very bottom. What is the family max? And it tells you what the family max, and I've even got a calculator there. It tells you how to calculate the family max there. So it basically, there's a maximum that can be paid out to the family. So, so let's say, for instance, let's go to the illogical extreme. If you're receiving benefits and you have like 100 kids, then you're going to be getting like, $300,000 a month. And obviously, Congress is, generous, but well, they used to be, but not that generous. So there's a family max, and it's basically, yes, 150 to 180% of your full benefit amount. So whatever the family max is, so let's say it's $3,000, then they take what you're receiving off of that, and then they figure the rest. So if you just have one child, family max is not an issue. If you have another child, then the family max might be an issue. And what they'll do is, let's say your child is going to receive, $2,000 now, make it easy. And then you have another child, and that child is entitled to $2,000, but that's the max got to be paid out to family members, $2,000. What they'll do is they give one child $1,000 and the other child $1,000. So you'll still receive up to the family max, no matter how many kids you receive. That's just divided amongst them. And yeah, so you have to start receiving benefits on your record for that to happen. So, Tony, my wife is working. Does that count against my income if I want to retire at 62 or for Social Security? No, it does not. Only your income counts. So your wife's income does not count whatsoever. Okay, I think I had one more question here.
Illinois recently passed a law that protects prior authorization, and I was wondering if Trump is going to affect prior authorization, would it be federally, and would that have any implications on Illinois as well?
All right. So prior authorizations, there's no prior authorizations if you have original Medicare Part A, Part B, and a Medicare supplement. There's no such thing as prior authorizations, essentially. If it's medically necessary, then, there's some in there that, like if you've, want to get some dental things done, dental type stuff, because original Medicare doesn't cover dental type stuff. But if you were in a tragic car accident and, your face was all messed up, and in order to fix you, they're going to have to mess with your teeth, then Medicare does cover it. So there are exceptions to stuff like that. But what you're talking about is Medicare Advantage plans who have a lot of the Medicare prior authorizations. And they're trying, actually, the federal government, CMS, has been for years trying to kind of, fix that because there's some sneaky Medicare Advantage companies out there that essentially, use the AI to deny people. There's a doctor at the Medicare insurance company is supposed to look and second guess your doctor. But there's a lot of changes on that. And I'm going to have Ari from Chapter Medicare probably within the next week or so, and we are going to talk about prior authorizations and whatever happens in your state. Usually, companies can kind of do, set different kind of policies as long as they stay within the, particular parameters. But states really don't have a say necessarily on Medicare Advantage plans like that. The particular companies have to follow the minimum of the federal standards. They can, go over and, improve them, but they have to do a minimum. So I don't think it's an Illinois type thing. It's more of a federal, but anyway. Mama, I just want to say I enjoy being here with y'all. Awesome. We enjoy having you here as well. Okay, let's see. Hello, sir. Happy 4th of July. My Social Security check is only $833. Will I get some raise in 2025? I am 67 years old. Okay. So that means if your check is only $833, you might just be receiving SSI, Supplemental Security Income. And SSI, the max you can receive is $967. So maybe you've got some other income or something that's offset that. I would definitely check that out while you're not receiving the full $967 if you're on SSI. If that is a retirement, you're receiving that as retirement, and you've got other income, then yeah, that is unfortunately what it is. But yeah, once you start receiving your benefit, once you turn 67, it doesn't change, increase, because you're already reduced and you're continuing to receive your check. But if that's all you're receiving, one thing I would definitely do is, apply for SSI if you're not getting it, get that extra $100. Apply for Medicaid while it's still around, fully, and see if you can also get that Medicare Savings Program where they pay the $185 for your Part B. And then once you get that, then you can get one of those Medicare Advantage dual eligible plans with the extra grocery cards and stuff. So I usually recommend Medicare supplement plans, but if you have Medicaid, you can't get a Medicare supplement plan. You can only get a Medicare Advantage plan. So, but you might be able to get an extra grocery card, get you extra $100, $200 in your pocket every month. So that's a beautiful thing. And you can reach out to Chapter and they can help you find one in your neck of the woods. I'm waiting my Social Security coming in August. It's regular Social Security, not disability. Per your video title, what is it they aren't telling me? I will only get $630 a month due to taking it early. Okay, so you're just getting regular Social Security benefits on your own record. You're coming in August, so you're getting your August check. Your August check comes in September, unless you started your benefits in July, then it'll come in August. If you're ever married 10 years or longer, married to someone when they passed away, you might be eligible for spouse benefits or divorce spouse benefits, even if your ex hasn't filed for benefits. That's called the independently entitled divorce spouse benefits. So definitely make sure you're receiving everything. And if all you're receiving is $630 a month, just like I told the previous person, if you got no other income or something, you need to apply for SSI and see if you can get some more money on top of that. So, Nellie, I have a question. If my ex-husband dies, do I continue to get 50% off of his retirement, or does it now go to full retirement 100%? It can go up to 100%. If you are your full retirement age when that event happens, then you will get 100% of his benefit amount. Yes. So, and that's essentially automatic. As Social Security calls it, automatic conversion. So if you're receiving benefits on his record, and then he passes away, and if you are your full retirement age at that time, it automatically converts to surviving spouse benefits. If you're under your full retirement age, then your benefits are suspended because Social Security wants to know whether you want to go ahead and start those survivor benefits early and get that reduction or wait. So if they do that, that means that's good. They're looking out for you. So when you get your benefits suspended, you just have to reach out to them and tell them what you want to do, and they go ahead and do it. So if there's still somebody in that particular office that you're looking for. Anyway, wow, I'm way over an hour here. Okay, let's make this the last question. And I never saw Joyce again. Did she disappear? I didn't see her. Yeah, unfortunately, I get tons of questions, and not able to. I was on SSA from age 20 to 56, got married, have no work history, so I'm screwed when it comes to Social Security. Web says I have less than $200 in Social Security benefits when I turn 65. What can I do? So yeah, when you turn 65, then I guess that means you do have a work history. So that means you work somewhere and paid at least 10 years, 40 quarters, because if it says that you do have something in there, then it means you do have something in there. Not necessarily at 65, yes, but at 62, you have something in there as well. But if so you got married at 56 and you got kicked off of SSI because your spouse works, and that income counts against your SSI, and you got SSI because you were disabled. You're still disabled, but SSI is a welfare-based program, needs-based, and now that you're married and married to someone that's making some money, then even though you're disabled, you're not eligible to receive the benefits because your household makes more money. Sounds like that's what happened. So yeah, at 62, then you can file for regular retirement benefits on your record. And remember, even if it's $100 at that time, if your spouse is collecting benefits at that time, then you can collect up to 50% of that person's benefits as well. So, all right, we are completely out of time again with all of these questions left to answer, and sorry, I'm not able to get to all of them. Joyce, go to my website, mygovexpert.com, make a video with your question. As you can see, I'd rather see your face, but someone pointed at the ceiling and asked a question. I guess that's fine too if you're shy. And I will definitely answer your question tomorrow. 100% guaranteed I will answer your question tomorrow if you make a recording. I love watching the recordings. So, all right, y'all.